We all know Oliver. We all know Laird. We all know Jack Steele and Bontempelli. They're the Uber Primos, the guys that you spend up and pay huge money for because of really good averages. In today's video, we identify 5 players in the next tier down from them, between 500 and 600k, that have the potential to become those Uber Primos of 2023. Hope you enjoy. How you doing, Joe?
Good, Big J. It's always about the midfield. The most important line in every year. Can we get the top 8? And here we are talking value because it's a really expensive year. A lot of people have to pay up. So many 600k plus defenders, like we mentioned already previously in other videos. And sometimes you just got to find what the best option is value-wise to fill out your team. So here we are, right?
Yeah, definitely. There's some real value there between that 500 and 600k mark. Obviously, that's what we're talking about today. That has the real potential to actually outscore a lot of these Uber Primos. Guys who maybe they come from a team that doesn't have a lot of scorers, or players have left that team and now they've kind of had to step up. Those are the guys we're really going to talk about today. Even if they don't end up being top 8, they will make a lot of money for you that you can quickly sideways trade to these guys you didn't start with. Who's up on our list first, Joe?
We're starting off with the one and only superstar from the Swans, Mr. Chad Warner. What a season this guy has had. Only his 3rd season. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like he's been around for a long time. Only his 3rd season, and the guy already was ranked 4th in the competition for total goal assists, 3rd for total inside 50, 6th for total score involvements. As you can see, he's really coming up in terms of the rankings, especially when it comes to the offensive side of the game. And what he's bringing to the Swans is something to behold. And you could see in that grand final, he was a lone man trying his heart out. And he was really, really impressive for the price of $532,000. What do you think about him?
It really feels like, when he was drafted, that he was, people like, who's this player? Another mid forward at the Swans, someone that they kind of picked up in that second round or end of second round pick. And the Swans are just magical at finding these really, really talented players further down in the draft. Their draft team and their recruitment team is just phenomenal that way. They've picked up guys like Goulden, Papley later on in the draft. I think he was even rookie draft, and now Warner as well. So this guy kind of came in last year as a midfielder, but mostly played forward. Went forward halfway through the season and was just dominated. It's really crazy what he did in that grand final. And even before then, the last few games of the regular season was just, it's sad not to have him on field compared to a lot of other really expensive 600k guys.
Oh, yeah, there's nothing worse than you start the year having paid top dollar for some Uber Primos, and all of a sudden you find players that are like $100,000 cheaper, matching them for output. I know a lot of people were scrambling when we started McRae last year, and then you had the likes of someone else that we're going to talk about in today's video really come out the blocks firing. But I guess the key thing with Warner last year was the reason why he became a lot more relevant Supercoach-wise was due to the increase in his CBAs. He was only in about 35% of center bounces that he attended in 2021, but that really was bumped up to 63% in 2022. And that is something that a lot of people are always on the lookout in Supercoach. It's about the role. What sort of role does a player have? And when you've got someone like a Chad who is coming up to a lot of center bounces and then pushing forward and getting score assists, it's a great combination for Supercoach scoring.
Yeah, and that's only really going to get better this year with the likes of Josh Kennedy not playing anymore. So, him not being in the team, that's another less midfielder. And I think he really identified, and Longmuir said this as well, or Longmire said this as well, where, hey, we want to play our best players in our best positions, and Warner can really do that for us. So there's no way they're going to go back and make him, mid-forward again, or mainly forward instead of like rotating through there or just resting through there, which is fantastic for Supercoach. These young players who are exciting to watch are the ones you really want to pick at this, lower price.
Oh yeah, and Horse loves him. Every time you see any interviews with other Swans players, they're always raving about how much he loves Chad, and it's like he's like his son or something. It's really it's funny to see, but you also can identify that this guy is the future of their midfield, and he's going to spearhead it exactly. Without Kennedy, as you say, who's retired, he's the one who's going to beat him with Mills, are really going to sort of step up and lead that midfield. The question is, how much does the emergence now of Aaron Francis in that team, they brought him across, he's going to play that intercept defending role. That could mean that there's less importance, there's less, I suppose, of a need for a Callum Mills to go back behind the ball and play that sweeper position, that goalkeeper position that we've so regularly saw. With Aaron Francis there, we might not see Mills go back as much. He might play more on the ball. And when we saw an increase in CBAs during the course of the season, there was a 25% bump for, in Warner's favour. And a lot of that came out of Mills. So if Mills can playing in that midfield this year, it will be an interesting dynamic to see just whether or not we see big CBA numbers for Warner. It was also ranked first for turnovers, and fourth for clangers. So he's I suppose his efficiency by foot leaves a bit to be desired still. Leaves quite a bit to be desired, but he can still be, with his young age, take his game up to another level.
Yeah, I guess that's like what that comes with, a little bit of not immaturity, but being a younger player, being a high impact player, gets the ball and runs. If he kicks the ball into the forward 50, sometimes they're not going to hit the target. So that's kind of what we see a little bit with him. I think definitely it's a watch and see during the preseason to kind of see the mix, what's happening at the Swans. But if you can't afford a really Uber Premo player, he's one definitely to put on your watch list there. I think he's only going to get better. He's not going to, degress that way.
Yeah, 100% agreed. Keep an eye on the Chad. Who's our next player, Big J?
So next up we have Tom Green. Now, Tom Green comes in at a 534 600K mark. The guy who, dominated the first half really of Supercoach last year. And with a depleted, well, maybe not depleted, but a lot of players leaving GWS in that midfield going to Richmond, has really got that spot set for him. Really beastly contested player who, when he doesn't have the ball, he gets the tackles as well, which is really important for us, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, contested possessions, you can have handballs, you can have kicks, sure, but when they're contested, it's something special, it's something different, and that's why he came flying right off, to start the season. And a lot of people were scrambling. Oh, is this legit? Is this the real deal? We're looking at a young Clayton Oliver 2.0, and that's the sort of game that he models his style off. That contested ball, first in, get a clearance out to someone running past, and off you go. And he was ranked 17th in the comp for total contested possessions. So that just goes to show that he was really up there, and he increased that clearance, having more time in the middle this year compared to 2021. He actually got 30 more clearances this year. And then we saw that translate into higher Supercoach scoring. Now you would imagine that would continue to rise even more, exactly as you mentioned, because Taranto and Hopper are gone. They're not eating into those midfield minutes, and they need big bodies. And this guy is the biggest of bodies at GWS.
Yeah, do yourself a favour if you haven't seen it already, and check out some of the training footage of Tom Green. His biceps, oh man, this guy has really taken in the fact that he's going to be the main man in GWS. Obviously, there's still Canelio and a couple of other players in there, but he's really going to be the main man there, the guy that's going to be leading these younger group of players, and probably a future captain coming up as well. So really, really impressive that way. There's not a lot of cons for him, but we'll just go over those now. So he is a bit of a clanger keeper. Isn't that great sometimes, but they're things that really As same with Warner, that these younger players can kind of learn, and as a team progresses, as the team gets better, obviously Kingsley's in now as well. So Leon's kind of gone. There's a lot more game plan and things like that in there. So maybe it was just a positioning thing. The guy runs past and now he's actually got someone to pass to. He didn't have a great finish to the year. He burst out, at the start of the year, and then the second half of the year wasn't as great, which is a little bit of a warning sign. But if you look at GWS, they finished, third last on the ladder. So that's kind of expected. They had a really good start to the season, died off, Leon left, the caretaker coach, someone else came in. The team's in a bit of a rye that way. And obviously players left because of that and other reasons, of course, as well. So it's not a huge factor that you kind of have to factor in.
Yeah, and the Giants were in a really weird spot because they lost their coach midway through the year, and you found that there were a lot of players that are traditionally really good scorers for them also have dips in their regular performance, like your Tim Tarantos, for example, during the middle of the season also was really poor with his Supercoach output, and it just feeds the energy of the group really gets sucked out. There's always the media attention, who the next coach is going to be. At the end of the day, yes, success and failure rides on the coach, but as players, I'm sure they can't help but feel some level of guilt as well. Now, as you mentioned, before the bye, he was averaging 108 points, but then on the backside, post bye, he dropped that down to an 85. Now, for a lot of people, though, that picked him at the start, not intending for him to be a keeper, well, they made their money and they were able to trade him off as soon as he started to slow down. And that's where that value pick can really come in handy. They don't have to be premium keeping for the entire year as locks in your team. You can get them at the start. They might have a great fixture. They might have great form. They might have, like Tom Green, a lot of things going their way. And the guy is only 22. So last year, yes, he might have burnt out. He was 21, fairly young, shouldering a lot of responsibility. He's 22 now, and he's training to the gym down. You know what I mean? As you said, that footage is insane. So there's going to be a lot of responsibility placed on these young shoulders. He could also burn out this year, and there's also an extra game. So that's something else that a lot of people have to consider as well. Definitely has great value. He's in my team. That's for sure. He has never left my team so far this preseason. Just a question, really, of how the season plays out. Do I keep him, or do I use the money that he makes to go up to someone else? It's only time will tell, really.
Yeah, and the big thing to look at as well is that if it can continue that kind of 108 form and boost that up by, let's say, 5 points, he's now rated at a 115. And a 115 in Supercoach is really going to push him over that 600K mark. So get Tom Green in now. If he works out for you, fantastic. If he doesn't, offload him when he builds up a bit more cash, and you'll be able to grab one of these fallen premiums really quickly. With us picking a lot of mid prices and a lot of what you would consider to be more expensive mature age rookies, he's one there that you can get some extreme value from.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are some cons, as there are cons with every player, but for Tom Green, we think the pros far outweigh the cons. Which I guess brings us to our next player, which also has a lot of upside, and that is your boy LDU from the North Melbourne Kangaroos. We're talking about a North Melbourne player as a potential primo in the mid, Big J.
Oh man, it's exciting. North Melbourne's been this team where hasn't really been Supercoach relevant. And there's a couple of rookies that we'll talk about later on as well. But just having kind of LDU there is fantastic for us. The kid's really kind of come into his body a lot last year, towards the end of the year, as we'll talk about his scoring. But this year, he's just flying, dominating preseason training, that kind of thing. Really, I think he's even put on some extra size as well. And Clarko coming in really, really loves him and knows, hey, you're going to be the future of this midfield. You're the guy that's going to carry me to a premiership. Here you go. Take the keys. That's it. I love it.
Oh, yeah. I can totally understand why you love him. Especially since he sort of just almost burst onto the scene last year. As you say, he really just came alive and really owned that midfield spot because, in 2021, he was only in 57% of bounces. He was just over half there. But this last season that went by, that was bumped up to 70%. So clearly you could see that not only was he becoming more physically ready to embrace that role, North Melbourne as a team also identified that we could really use this explosive ability to get us some center clearances. And he was ranked 11th in the whole entire competition for center clearances per game, 9th in total. So you can definitely see that he's becoming entrusted more to win that ball in the middle and get some forward ground position and get that ball into the forward line, which appears to be a lot healthier this year compared to other years, which could also mean that we could have more score assists for LDU. So there's a lot of upside there.
Yeah, there's definitely someone now in the forward line with Comben and Larky kind of teaming up, with our forward line getting a lot better, that he can actually run through the middle and kick to and grab some of those score assists like you're saying. The big thing with 2021 is that he was really just kind of coming off injury. He has had a few injuries kind of at the start of his career. I think he got OP, had some hamstring injuries, that kind of thing. That really kind of slowed down his development. So I always kind of attune him to being like a Brayshaw. They were both in the same draft year, kind of both the same talent. I think Brayshaw was like pick 3 and then LDU was pick 4. Maybe Brayshaw pick 2 and then LDU was pick 4. So kind of around the same talent-wise. But you look at where Brayshaw is now, almost going to be an uber elite player dominating that midfield at Freo. LDU's kind of hitting in his heels. He's coming for him as well, being that type of player. Look at the progression that Brayshaw's had. That's what you kind of can expect from an LDU. And it's his midfield, like I kind of said as well. There's no one really pushing. Cunnington's a bit older. Some other players may be coming up, which only really helps because LDU's not going to get the focus of every team all the time now.
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes there are situations where spreading the love in terms of people running through a midfield can be beneficial. And it could be the case here, especially because it was really impressive the way LDU ran out the year. It was almost like the opposite of how Tom Green ended the year. Tom Green came out with really low, poor scores, whereas LDU came into the year flying. And that sort of, behavior, I suppose, just is really exciting and shows you that this person is really suited for a whole year. And if they're trending down the house in pre-season and flying as well, then that only just, I suppose, encourages you that this is someone that you can pick and, expect to hold for the entire year, because they're going to, not only are they going to continue to play good, they could in fact improve their output towards the end of the season. And that's something that is really reassuring. So, he's not old, he's still really entering into the prime of his career, as you say. The only thing I guess that some people would have against that is that because of that different development compared to a Brayshaw, he's a bit unproven. And so if you want to go with this selection, then you really have to be confident that this really is the year that he well and truly breaks out and takes that next step to be that A-grade midfielder that North Melbourne have craved for so long. Now, the question is, will the arrival of a Phillips, for example, who's been dominating in the preseason as well, will that hinder him or improve him? Well, it really seems like it could improve him because he has that outside game. He doesn't have to rely exclusively on getting the ball and dishing it out. He has an ability to run and break lines that Tom Green doesn't. So, there's so much upside to this guy. There really is. And with the scoring assists that could be coming his way, there are also more effective kicks. So less clangers, less turnovers. If you're kicking it and breaking even, you won't be getting those those points taken off you. So it's really exciting that we have an LDU breaking out. If not this year, then next year, I think will definitely be in my team.
Yeah. I mean, as we look at kind of his scoring from last year, pre-buy, so pre-middle of the year, he was averaging 100. So for his price, that's a decent score. But post-buy, kind of when his disposals and CBA started going up, he was averaging 111. And a 111 in Supercoach really equates to kind of getting close to that 600K or just over mark. So you're getting him almost at a 50%, 50K discount at the moment, let alone him actually getting better and being more consistent. So really, really good option there. The only negative, like you're saying, is, hey, he hasn't done it before. You have to kind of take that risk with a lot of these players, and that's why you get them at a reduced price compared to McRae's and Bonds, who have done it multiple years in a row. And kind of just, hey, how does the midfield shape up a little bit with Clarko? I don't think he's going to kick him out of that position, but you never know with first-year coach. So just wait for preseason games, really, to see him dominate. If he comes out with a 120 in the preseason game, lock and load, really.
Yeah, very excited. Someone else, though, who has done it before, not their first rodeo, is someone by the name of Ben Keys from the Adelaide Crows. And this is someone that I know you are a little bit more, keen about him. You've had your eye on him. What do you like about him?
Most teams, as we see in the AFL, really can have two high-scoring mids. And obviously Adelaide have Laird, and Ben Keys kind of really fills that second spot. He basically got delisted at Brisbane quite a few years ago. Ever since coming to Adelaide, he's really made that midfield spot his own. If from the tackles or from the multiple possessions during a game, kind of being that impact player who, a little bit, you imagine how Freo was with Nat Fyfe and Neil, where Fyfe kind of got all the attention and Neil kind of hid a little bit under the radar. That's how I can kind of see Ben Keys is at the moment. The man averaged, 114 pre-buy, and had some really, really good scoring with a high score of 149, which is really impressive for kind of his price range. I know people who started him off were really, really happy because he's outscoring a lot of premiums.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And he was doing it with just sheer gut running, as well as a lot of good, contested ball numbers. And contested ball is so important. And this guy just doesn't get tagged. That's the thing. When you have other players in that midfield, like your Sloans, for example, you just can't tag this guy because you won't value him to be as super high, priority. Especially when you look at him, he was ranked 7th for turnovers, per game, and 6th in total turnovers as a whole. So you would tend to take the gamble that this person, they might be picking the ball up a lot and gathering a lot of disposal, but is it threatening? Is it damaging? So a lot of people will pick their poison when you have two big midfielders that are really going at it. They'll probably go for the one who's more efficient, more clinical, more important for accurate passing and things like that. But that's just great for Ben Keys and his Supercoach scoring. That's all we care about. And he had, like you said, he scored huge. I mean, he scored 149 in a 42-point loss to the Pies in round 2. So he doesn't have to be in a winning side in order to score better. In fact, I actually think he performs better when Adelaide loses. So if you think Adelaide are going to lose more games this year, then he's definitely a lot more promising in that regard, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. In 2022, kind of towards the end of the season, he did get a bit of a shoulder injury that he is kind of suffering with at the moment during the preseason. So it's something to watch there. I know he's been going through rehab and doing quite well with that. And it's only January at the moment. So 2 months of real training afterwards definitely puts him back into that position. The real question with him is the price is pretty good. The output and the scoring in the past has been really good. The role's there. But as kind of Adelaide's midfield with Sam Berry and Schoenberg coming in and their scoring, does he share around a little bit of the ball more? And can he be consistent for you? As we've said with the other players today, they don't have to be keepers, but they really provide some extreme value there for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Sam Berry, he's one that I've got my eye on and will be someone that was going to feature in a future video. He really rose in the back half of last year. He was really given a lot more responsibility, especially when it came in the centre bounce department. He had a lot more attendances there. And that, unfortunately, ate into a bit of Keys's time there. And like we said before, role is so important in what a person does and what their scoring is. Because ultimately, if you're in a great role, then you're being given every opportunity to score well. But if you're playing a really terrible role at half forward, for example, where you're reliant on getting great delivery and then kicking goals or getting score assists, it's not conducive to success. So there is a bit of a floor issue, I suppose, when it comes to Keys. Definitely not a problem with his ceiling. Again, wait and see. Early January. Let's see how well, if he really is over that shoulder injury. If he is, then it could just be that he claims again the lion's share of the centre bounces. That's something that we'll just have to have a look at.
Yeah, definitely. So last stop on our list, we have
Tom Mitchell.
Came across from Hawthorn to the Pies and has really, really started to dominate that preseason, right, Joe?
Oh, yeah. He is flying by all reports, and Collingwood did a good job releasing quite early footage of him with the Dacos boys, with Quaynor, just really running, and they were topless too. So the ladies, if there are any ladies watching, that was a pretty good video for you guys too. And you can just see that they're really putting in the hard yards. He's getting to know his teammates really well. And it just seems clear to me that this guy is not coming across from Hawthorn to play half forward, is he?
No. I mean, they've poached basically, the former Brownlow medalist, the guy who you would have thought, looking at that Hawthorn list, was considered to be the best player. They brought him across for a reason. They know, hey, your distribution from the ruck is phenomenal. That's something that we kind of lacked in 2022. Our rucks did okay, but weren't really effective because of the people around the midfield. So Tom Mitchell's come in. He's going to have those first handballs or kicks out of that midfield congestion straight to a player and scoring points.
Oh, I think they're definitely going to be mostly handballs and not kicks. This guy is a bit of a handball merchant, Mr. Tom Mitchell, which in a lot of circumstances just, I suppose, limits his ability to score points. So often you find that this guy will have like 30-something odd disposals for a little over 100 Supercoach points. That's always been an issue with Titch, with Tom Mitchell, and that's just the hallmark of his game. He's come exactly as you said. He's going to get a lot of clearances. Yet he might not have the best ruckman tapping down to him, but he didn't have amazing ruckman at Hawthorn either. So it's not really going to be a big setback for him. He's going to definitely be their number one clearance getter, and then shooting a handball out to a running Dacos will be something that we see a lot, or shooting a handball out to Crisp. You're going to see it time after time, and it's going to be very hard to stop because these guys are fast. They play a quick brand of football, and he was ranked 15th for total disposals per game. So he's still up there at this current age, acquiring the ball, picking the ball like no one's business. It's quite remarkable, his ball-winning ability.
Yeah, definitely. He's going to really score a lot of points from those scoring chains, which is kind of what you want. If you're not going to be kicking goals, that kind of thing, being really involved. And that's something we see with a lot of ruckmen too, is they'll get a tap, but they get a few extra points from that scoring chain, especially Sean Darcy, who, get a +8 on the back end of the tap is pretty phenomenal.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And when you've got someone like Cameron, who's probably more agile than your Sean Darcy is, can definitely be of some support. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's quite a few like 1-2 action out of the middle. I know we see that quite a bit with like Darcy Parish and Zach Merritt for Essendon. We see that a lot, which is why you see them always. These two are able to get so many disposals, but with very low meters gained. I think we're going to see something similar as well with Titch, with Tom Mitchell. We're going to have a lot of clearances, a lot of first possession, maybe a couple of 1-2s here and there to free up someone to get into space. And that's what he does best. I mean, he's had over 20 disposals in every single game last season, except for 2. And one of them, he had 19. Like, basically, he got 20. So he's very reliable in finding the ball. The question, though, with him, though, is that he's coming into a new coach with a new system, a new team entirely. And Collingwood are so good at sharing the love, at spreading the load. It's a real team effort, the way they go about winning their games. They don't have passengers. And because of that, the crazy stat, not one Collingwood player averaged 100 points or more this year. That is insane. I'm not sure if there's any other team that's in that situation. But when you look at it that way, it's like, oh boy, is Tom Mitchell going to fall in and slip into this, I suppose, conform with this system and not average 100? Nah, I wouldn't look too much into that. He's I think this guy is very sure to get over 100 points.
It's a pretty crazy stat when you look at it, just kind of how McRae has come in and really changed the ball movement at the Pies. And that's probably one of the things that has really led them to having that great ladder position last year. They get the ball, they bring it down the forward line, and they just score goals that way. And it's worked out really well for them. The best thing about Tom Mitchell really is that he's the one that's getting the ball and sending it down the line for them, giving it off to the distributors, that kind of thing. If he was a halfback flanker, if he was a winger, that kind of thing, you'd be kind of worried about him. But straight in the guts, that's kind of his really great scoring position and should lead him to scoring over 100 at least. I'd probably be expecting maybe like a 110 if you're lucky that way.
Yeah. And for that price of 528,000, that is ridiculous. That is it's very rare, I think, to have. This is really fallen primo territory here. It is very impressive. Now, obviously, being so cheap, if he was to get injured early in the season, sidewaysing him might be difficult. I mean, he is he's clocking up to 30 years old now, and obviously, the older you get, the more prone you are to soft tissue injuries. Obviously, the training reports and the footage does not indicate that at all. But you just never know when someone hits 30. Things just start to change a little bit. And if he was to get injured early in the season, sidewaysing him would be pretty difficult for that price. You'd have to probably downgrade somewhere else, or maybe even go less than that, which is probably entering into, it wouldn't be the primo territory anymore. It might be someone like a Rowbottom, for example, or a Whitfield that's another rung below. You know what I mean? We're not talking primos at that point anymore.
Yeah, I guess it's the same thing with everybody, right? Watch and see. They've given us 35 trades and trade boosts for a reason. So if something happens, it's not like it's the end of the world. 3 years ago where you could barely finish a team. Now you can definitely do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are the 5 players that we've identified that are in that next rung down price-wise. If you're looking for some value with upside, yes, there are some concerns, but hey, if you put an eye on anybody, you can find concerns anywhere. This here is talking about the upside, the potential to find some real value in the team. And I know for a fact that we've got at least, I think most people will have at least one person amongst in this list on their team come the start of the season.
Yeah. All right, guys. If you like the content, like, share, and subscribe, and we'll hit you up with some more things coming up soon. All right. Any final words, Joe?
See ya in the next one.